So welcome to Excel 101. So where we're going to start is by me sharing our screen, and I have a blank canvas that we're going to mess up today. Okay. I'll order my screens around.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
We'll mute Mark. Okay. And so I have two screens going, so you guys are all on one screen over here, so I'm looking at you here, but I have the Excel spreadsheet in front of me. So an Excel spreadsheet, the very first thing that's important to know is how to read the sheet. And so you have your columns here. So alphabetically, you have columns that go along this way, infinite number of them. And here you have the numbers that go down this way, infinite number of them. So when you're looking at this, the way to read this is if I happen to be in this cell right here and the box is highlighted, I'm in area or cell C7. I followed it down C7. That's very important as you start to build your formulas so that you know how to read those, because your formulas will all be based on the cells you want to include in any formulas. Okay, and it'll also tell you right here where you are. So if you could do it at a glance, you can do that. Okay, so as you're working with some of the formatting things, the nice thing about using Excel spreadsheet is that, like Word and like PowerPoint, if you've been in any of those, a lot of the features are the same across the Microsoft Office products. So as you're going into some of these things, you can change the width of your columns, you can change the size of your rows, and you can tell that if you wanted to do all of your rows to be the same size, highlight them all, and it's going to go ahead and make all of those the same size. Okay. You can also, as you're just clicking one of these, you can also go and do formatting just like you can in Word by right-clicking on there, and you can format your cells as well. You also have here, you can choose what space type you want to use, how much you like, bold, colors, all of those types of things. And then you can also do, and this is helpful for me when I'm doing a large volume of data on an Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes it gets hard to read. And so I can go in and just do a fill. And so I could do every other one fill so that I have that's delineated between the two. And then I'm just going to click my undo on both of those. The other thing you could do is if you're working in a space and you have a bunch of data here and it's difficult to read, you could also turn on your grid lines, or you could actually set your borders up for all borders. That helps a little bit too when you're doing that. Okay. So if you have, in fact, what I'm thinking about doing is, how many of you, we have almost all, Mark's our prettiest business support specialist, but almost all business support specialists here today. How many of you manipulate some of the reports you do in Profit Power in Excel? Anybody done that? So Rachel's done that, Diane's done that. Okay, so let's do that real quick. Let's go ahead and, of course, all this information I'm going to pull up is for the Sanford office, Diane's office. So it's confidential, which is fine, but just we'll keep it confidential. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into, I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to share my Profit Power. I'm going to pull up some information there. All right, can you see my Profit Power? So I'm going to go run a pending report. This is something I know Diane does for me and Talia every Monday morning. They check their pending reports. Not much left, so let's go out and just go to change the date there and just go out to the end of October, run that report. Now I'm going to do, instead of printing that report, I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to dump that out to Excel. So just hit the icon next to the print button. I hit the Excel here.
Hi, Rebecca. I'm sorry.
We're not in.
I don't
Profit
see
Power
that.
Screen.
I see business expenses. I'm sorry.
What?
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's all good. I assume you all know how to run the pending report, right? Since you live here. All right, now can you see my pending report? All right, make more sense. All right, so this icon right here is your export or save icon. So we're going to go ahead and just dump this out to Excel. And it's exporting now. I can go ahead and open that file. And you may not have migrated with me to Excel. Did you not go with me? Diane, can you see the pending report in Excel right now?
Mm-mm,
Okay,
no,
not surprised. That's all right. We'll get really good at share and unshare. And enable, just like Word, when you come up, it's always going to come up enable editing. So you need to do that. All right, so now you can see the pending report, Diane.
come back to your screen.
So this is a well-run machine. How's that?
We were there until, and then it just stopped sharing. There we
Yeah, I
go.
don't know what happened. All right. So here's a great place where you can start with your pending report. And so there's a bunch of things you can do. Let's say you need to, you figure out what's left for your pendings, right? And so this one's closed and this one's closed here, closed. And so I don't want to see those anymore. I don't want visibility of those anymore. So I'm just going to highlight those and come down here to delete, and those are gone. Okay, now don't panic. There's always an undo button. So just undo and they come right back. But some of the other things that you might want to do, and some of these reports I've realized don't do some of the addition at the end of your columns like you need. And so there are ways that you can do that. So I'm just going to delete these, this column right here, this column right here. I'm holding down my control key on my keyboard to get both of those highlighted. And I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And so the very first formula we're going to work on is the simplest of all. And so we're going to work right up here. This is your symbol for formulas. And you have a little drop down button, and I want to add that whole column. So I'm just going to hit sum, and it's going to go ahead and make the assumption that I wanted to add up. Okay. And so as it adds up, I just want to check and make sure it got all the way to the top. If there's any space in there, it'll go right up to that space. And so you may have to actually increase that all the way to the top. But it got all the cells that I wanted, and so I can hit the enter key, and that's adding it for me. And if you did the same in the other direction, so if I was here and had a bunch of data going this way, I might want to do the same thing here. And I'm going to do sum. And it now is just going, because it's smart enough to know that it's going to go backwards to the left until it stops seeing numbers. When alpha starts, it's not going to add those in. And again, I can just hit the add button and it'll add all those numbers together. Now, there are times when you want to get a little bit more complicated than that, right? And so maybe one of the things that would be a good idea to do is, let's just add this column here so we have some good data to work with. And so, sorry. Enter. And so now we have almost $7 million in volume that's pending right now. So really what we'd like to do is we'd like to know what our average volume number is. And so to get that number, I'm going to take my almost 7 million divided by my 18.5, and that's going to tell me what my average volume is. It's going to be important because you're going to be doing some of this math this afternoon in the business planning, because your agent's going to need to know what their numbers are. Brand new agents, you have to do it by the office average. Experienced agents, you can go and get their own numbers. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell it that we want to do a formula. You could go up here and you could figure out which formula you want to use, but we know what it is because we know we want to take the 7 million divided by this, right? So we're going to, first thing is tell it it's a formula. So you're going to put the equal sign in there. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab that cell, and I'm going to put in the divider symbol in Excel. And I'm going to grab this cell right here. And because there's an equal number, it all is now highlighting the cells I want to use. As soon as I hit the enter key, it's going to come up and give me a number. That is not an error. That means that the cell format is too many digits in there, and so it can't read it. And so if I go ahead and rest between the J and the K columns and just double tap that, it'll make that wide enough for me to then be able to see what the result of that was. The other thing I can do is I also know that this comes down to dollars and cents. I don't really need the dollars or the cents. I want the dollars. And so I can just go ahead and round that to that amount. So on my pending report, I have 18 and a half units that are going to close between now and the end of October. And they are roughly in the price point of $375,000. Okay. So now I've got a GCI amount as well. So can anybody help me if I wanted to know what my average GCI was? Average is usually the acronym for it is AVG. Can anybody help me with what the math is? The very first thing we're going to do is add the column. All right, so we've got, that's how much we have in GCI expected. What's my formula to figure out what my average per unit transaction is here? Anybody? You didn't know you were going to get math questions, did you? I'm surprised you guys haven't all jumped out.
Are you just dividing it by the 18 and a half?
Yes, very good. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the equals key so I can tell the spreadsheet that I want to do a formula. I'm going to go ahead and grab that, divide it by the 18 and a half. And now I know that my approximate gross commission income per transaction is $9,000, right? And so the next piece of it is going to be is what is my average office commission? Because the agents are going to need to know that when they start their business planning, right? And so now we have this number here. And so we need to figure out what that is. What are the agents actually charging out there for commission? And it's per side. So is it 2%? Is it 2.2%? Is it 2.5%? Are they really good and getting 2.8? And those numbers will fluctuate a little bit, right? Because if you're in an area where you're doing 60-40 and they're doing a 5 or a 6% commission, on the listing side, they're going to get more money. On the buy side, they're going to get less. So if your numbers are starting to turn and go towards 2.8 or 2.9 or maybe 3%, you may be in an area where your office is doing 6% listing side transactions. You're a heavy listing office, and that means they're getting 3.6. And that's going to trend those numbers closer to 3 than it is 2, right? And we really want to see that. That's one of the, as you guys all found out in your meeting a couple of weeks ago, that's one of our shared goals or KPIs, is trying to get that number to trend up to 2.5, which is why as sales directors, we talk about it in a number of business meetings, is that, you know, you cannot do commissions out there below X amount, because that is really starting to affect the profitability for our agents and the company as a whole. Okay. So anybody want to take a guess on how we're going to calculate that out? Mark, are you guessing?
There we go. No, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All
We're
right.
gonna do an equal sign,
Ah,
and we're gonna grab that commission amount, the 9,000. We're gonna divide it by the 374,589.
oh.
Let's try it.
All right, so this office right now is, and this is trending down for the Sanford office because our so far this year it's 2.8. So this makes me nervous because I'm seeing a 2.4. Okay. So Mark, can you take me to the next step and to show me how to convert that to a percentage, which we'd all normally see?
Times it by 100.
Yes, you could. I'm going to cheat, if you don't mind.
No, you
I'm going to go
for it.
right up. I'm going to go right up here to the percent sign. And it's going to do it for me. Now, remember, I saw that as a 2.4, and it's pretty important when you're working out to the 10th position that you actually see that 0.4. And so now I'm going to go the opposite direction. Remember when I took these down, the pennies down, I didn't want to see those. Now I do. So I'm going to go in the opposite direction, and I'm going to hit it in that direction. And now it's 2.4. It's like magic, isn't it?
Can you show us the magic on that percentage again?
You bet. I'm gonna hit the awesome magic button of undo. Okay, so one more time on the math, Mark.
Equals the 9,000 divided by the 374.
And so I've got a bunch of numbers after that decimal. All right, and so I'm going to go up here. Once you're on that cell, remember to go back and click on that cell. I'm going to hit that right there, that button up at the top. And it's going to go ahead and click that, but it's rounding it for me. So I've got to show that to the 10th. So I'm going to hit this button right here. And it's gonna pull it out. If I needed to see more, I just keep clicking
Oh, okay.
or in the other direction and click it back.
Got it.
So now I want to do a couple of other things. I've got my numbers right. Okay, so now as a sales director, I'm nervous because our numbers aren't looking good for the end of September and October as far as this number right here goes, because I like to see that trending up. And so, you know, I might think, I wonder where that is, what's happening, you know, how is that number going? And so I might want to come out here and just do that math. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up the equals and the commission, and I'm going to divide it by that volume right there. And I'm going to see if I have a trouble spot. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first calculation. Let's go ahead and make it a percentage and let's just see what we've got out there. So we've got a 3%. I'm like, oh, Carrie did a good job. All right. But I want to see all of them, see if I've got a trouble spot somewhere. So watch what I'm going to do in the lower right-hand corner of the cell. You see where that just changed from a thick cross to a very black cross? I'm going to double click right there. I'm going to double click right there, and you have to be exact. And it's not going to do it. Typically, if you do, part of the reason is it won't do this is because the blank space is not formatted like an Excel spreadsheet right now. But if you were in an Excel spreadsheet that we hadn't copied from Profit Power, that would have just filled the entire column. It didn't. So what I'm going to do instead is just drag it all the way down. That's our second option. There are more than one way to get at almost everything, right? And so this means that there's no data on that line. It's not a big deal. There are two ways to get rid of that. If I were actually doing that information at the bottom, you'd have to, because any calculation cannot calculate on a number sign and then the garbage that's behind it. It's just saying I can't calculate. It's now confused. I can right click and I can clear contents, or I can come down here and I can hit the space bar and it's gone. All right, so then I can run down here and I can say, okay, oh, whoops. All right, what did John do? Right, John just did something at a 1.5%. So that means I'm going to John's office this afternoon and say, hey, what the hell? Oops. Yes, I would say it to John. All right, to have that conversation. But, you know, we've got one here that's a 1.9. I know what's going on with these because we talk in advance on most of those, right? He had an opportunity to do both sides and he didn't need to do any marketing for either the seller or the buyer. So he ended up doing it at 3%. So that was actually endorsed. I don't know what's going on here, so we'll have to take a look at that one and dig into that a little bit. So if I were to actually average this column here, it should absolutely equal the same 2.4. And so I could come right up here. And there are many, many times when I'm working on large sets of data that I want to add down. I want to do averages down and averages across to make sure I've got all my information in the data correct. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the average button. It's going to figure it out for me. Now you see where it stopped right there because there was a blank. I need it to go all the way up. So I'm going to click here and go all the way to the top. There, hit enter. We ended up with a 2.9. So I would say there's something going on in my data, probably because these are blank, right? Averages all go on how many cells it copied up. So that's a possibility that you could do it that way. Then the next thing I want to do in here, which is going to be to sit on this cell, which is B4, and I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and End together. Control, Shift, and End. And it's going to highlight my entire spreadsheet. So if I wanted to start doing formatting on every single one of these cells, that's how I would do it, right? If I hit Escape, it takes it off. Again, this is not going to work because we're in a pre-formatted one. But I didn't want to have the different numbers that I just pulled into that in this, because I'm going to do a sort. And I'm going to do a sort based on agent, because I've got John here, John up here, and I need to see them all by John and by Carrie and by Kayla. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do a sort filter function. I'm going to do a custom sort. And I was very specific to make sure my header row was highlighted so that I could sort by. That my data has headers, right? So you got to tell it sometimes. So I just clicked on that. And that then is going to give me those headers. And I want to do that by associate name. And I'm gonna click OK. And to do this merge, the merge cells needs to be the same. So unfortunately, with Profit Power, some of these, they have some really unique formatting. So when it comes down, it doesn't want you to go ahead and do those types of sorts. So we have something that's a merge cell somewhere in here, and I suspect this is the very top one. Let's try this. Merge cells is they've just tried to join two cells together. Let's see if I can do that again without headers. Custom sort. Now I'm not going to have headers, but I know it's column D, right? That was column D for associate. And I'm going to go like that, and it still didn't like it. And I tell you what that is. If you take a look at D, column D, this is bleeding into column A. So somehow they've merged those two cells, and I could actually unmerge them by doing this. If you see that's grayed out, that's the cell. I could also do the whole spreadsheet, and I could say, take all the merges off, right? So some of those will look funny now. So now merge has been shut off. And I'm going to go and try that one more time. And there you go. We just had to find what the hiccup was. And now this is all sorted in alphabetical order by all of these. Now this information is no longer valid, right? And so I'd just go ahead and delete that because I scrambled the data. So I just would delete that piece of it. This it should still be the same, except for these last two here. Let's see if we can get that out of there. Delete those. So something changed here to change that from a, it must be, shouldn't have changed anything on that. The data is the data, and it should still say 2.4.
I think when you highlighted them all, Rebecca, you had missed the very top one.
Oh, okay, that could be. Yep. So that's the manipulation on some of those formulas. And before I move on, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to see any of that again? Do you want me to start over?
I have a question.
Yes, Rachel.
What report did you pull? I know it says
Just-
pending sales detail, but can you show me your others, your profit
I
power
can.
reporting screen?
I can. Hang on just a second. So I did a pending sales detail for all companies for just the Stanford office, and I ran it through the end of October.
So, and I don't know if it's just me, I don't get company dollar. I wonder if that's an admin thing, like I'll only have volume in GCI, I don't see company dollar.
Diane,
Let me
can you run a
see.
pending report real quick for me?
I already have October's.
Of course.
So can I share my screen and show you what I get?
Indeed. Hang on just a second. You're all set?
Okay. Where is it? October pending. This is what mine looks like.
That's what mine looks like.
Interesting. And you have the listing source and the selling source, which would be very beneficial to me. Mark?
Hello?
Hello, I'd love to see this, the listing or sell side source on
Yeah.
those.
Because I go in and I fix them. Because the listing source always comes across as MLS 224, so I go in and fix them to what they actually are.
Oh, you're doing that on your pending report? Or
Mhm.
you're doing that
I
in
do that in Profit Power.
Profit Power? Okay,
And then if we've got the buy side, I make sure that it doesn't show up on the list side. I make sure that it actually goes into the buy side.
so there's some manipulation you're doing in Profit Power to get this report to look this way.
Mhm.
Are you all
And then
doing that same?
I add Sanford and Wells in there, so that, and then I add what day of the week. So I know, like on Monday, if it's Sanford or Wells, and
Show me how you insert that column. Can you insert one between B and C, please?
yep,
She clicks on the column header, insert, and there you have it. And she had clicked on C, so you know it's going to insert just before. Sometimes it'll actually ask you for that.
And then if we have both sides, I put both and I darken it, so I know that we've got two sides.
Is there any way on your pending report, now we're a little down a rabbit hole, that you can tell if it's a Grady's title that's closing this on any of these reports? No, I would
Usually
think
if
that'd
we
be
have
helpful.
the buy side, I can look them up. Just go into the file if they put it in there.
But there's
That
not
they-
an automatic report that we can pull, no.
No, because we don't always know until it closes that it was Great East, because sometimes they don't tell us.
Even if they told you, though, I don't think you can pull that report, can you?
Probably
No.
not.
Okay, all right.
I can only
right.
see agents commission on like a closed report. I haven't been able to find them on the pending reports.
For the agent
So-
only versus company dollar. How do you use that information, Rachel?
What, the pending sales detail?
No, if you had the visibility of the agent versus company dollar, how would you
I
use
just
that
did it
information?
yesterday with one of my one-on-ones. We figured out with the estimated pending sales that she has for the rest of the year, she's actually jump up 2 spots in her commissions.
And so that
so-
was just by doing by agent volume.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's good information to have. Diane, can you make 2 notes for me, please? Can you make a note that you guys need to see company dollar? And it would be helpful to have the source of the business on our pending reports. Thank you. All right, I'm going to show you a couple more things because it'll be important for today's training this afternoon. And I'm assuming you can see my pending on the Excel spreadsheet again. Okay. So there are times when I might want to take all this data here for Mr. John. Ross, I'm going to highlight all of this all the way over here. And just say I'm working on a project for John, right? We're trying to figure out what's going on. What is he have pending through the end of the year would be a great one for the exercise this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit copy there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on a tab for just John, right? So I just clicked on that at the bottom and I'm just going to go ahead and write out his name. Carmahalis is way too long. So I'll just do JC because I know I can find that again. So I'm going to come up here and on the cell A2 and I'm going to do control. So I did, before I highlighted that, I did control C. Now I'm going to go ahead and paste it with control V. And I have John's information here. I can manipulate some of these columns by simply just double clicking so that I get the right width there. And you notice that I left the first column blank. I started on A2, right? Because I want to go back here and just make sure that I pick up this information as well. So I'm going to hit Control C, go back to his tab and pop this in right here. And then I would go ahead and hide that blank column just like that. All right, so now I could start doing manipulations on John's information for what he's got pending from now to the end of the year. All the same way, right? Just going to go ahead and add that up. So we know he's got 4 more closings. What's his volume look like? This is some of what Rachel was doing for her agents and GCI. And that would assist you in taking a look. You know, John's got another 28,000. And I'm assuming what Rachel actually did was she said, okay, that 28,000 is actually going to knock him up into the next level. And then how far is he from the next one up, right? So as of Monday morning, we have 90 days left in the year, right? We're talking about this 90-day challenge in our offices. And so how many can you close between now and the end of the year to get to that next tier? And it's very, very important because most of the comp plans for the agents, if they attain a certain level, they'll start January with that. And so for them to miss that by $4,000 or $5,000 it could be a crusher for 2023. Likewise, right, if you've got an agent that hasn't been performing, but really turns the gas off in the next 90 days, and they could get themselves out of a hole where they're on the lowest rung and they don't want to, or they started this year at, let's just say 65, and they're on the brink of actually going down to a 62.5, they may be able to sprint to the finish and do enough GCI to actually stay or increase, but likely stay at that 65. So there's no surprises in January, all of a sudden they reset downward because they didn't finish the year strong. So those are the types of conversations we want to be having with agents on our one-on-one business plan. Okay. And so you're going to add as many sheets as you want. That'll be important this afternoon because we have a number of sheets in the business plan piece of it. So any other questions? Anything you guys are curious about? This is the part of the non-judgmental piece of it that no question is would be laughed at or be thought too dumb. We want to make sure you have, this is your opportunity to ask those questions where you thought, you know, if I could just get Excel to do this for me. Mark, and
Yeah,
now
yeah,
I may have
so-
to go to, Amanda Atkins is backing me up, so you may have to say, I'll have to look that up, Mark.
Well, I'm glad we're in the no judgment zone. So great stuff. Obviously, you've been manipulating data in this program for a while because you're pretty fluent. I am sure that this afternoon when I go in and try and mess with it, I'm going to go, now, how did she do that? So I'm curious, is there an area in here where I can search, how to average, how to, manipulate the data? Is there
So,
like a help?
I have yet to, there is a help here button. There is also a search function here. So there are times when this is called your ribbon here across the top, just like it is in Word. So there are times when you're missing one of the ribbons, and so you could actually search for that here. Let's just see is,
Let's try it.
see what happens. So it brings up this box. So this is another way. There are 2 or 3 ways that I have found in Excel to get at a problem. And so that button up here is one of them. It's also using the equals and just highlighting all of the cells you want to add. There also is this one here that you can bring it up and you can say, okay, I want to start with what's my range, right? So you can put in all your cell numbers. So I want a range of C7 to C14. And in this one, I want you to put the number that it actually equals. So please put the number that you come up with in C15. Okay, and so that'll do that for you. I find this very complicated to use. It's far easier to use the other by highlighting those. So I'm not sure that's going to help. So let's go over to here. And this is going to take you out to the World Wide Web, and it'll answer your questions there.
If
And
you click
I-
show training, do you want to click show training and then type in sum so that they can see what that does?
Ooh, look at that. Nice.
Yep, and then sum or anything. Yeah, sorry, and not to interrupt, but I was like, no.
It's great. It's great. So there you have it. I learned something today, and that is awesome. Thank you so much. So then you have more information on that.
I had a question in the chat too.
Take a peek at that. And to get back, I just hit the home key. And to close out of that, you can hit that's right there. And oh, we've got a bunch in chat. Okay. We will not be using pivot tables. That would definitely be Excel 301, because that is advanced when you start getting into charts and highlighting those areas. And I almost always do that, leave my data here, and then put my charts in a new tab over here. And a lot of times I'll just call that charts. I'm going to do that. So that's a great question, but we will not have to do pivot tables. We want to keep this business planning as simple as possible so we can get as many agents as possible using it. And if we start doing charts and pivot charts and those types of things, we'll lose them in a heartbeat. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here. Okay. Any other questions?
I think I have another question.
Fire
how
away.
Yeah, how often would we be using this, or is this something that we're only going to be doing for this business planning meeting that's happening?
So that's gonna end up being, stop sharing and have a conversation here. So that's gonna end up being a conversation we're gonna have with the agents and the sales directors. And I suspect it's gonna go something like this, right? So we have some agents that don't plan at all. This is gonna be brand new to them, right? So we're gonna bring them into this, we're gonna do that planning. And I think some of the manipulation of the Excel spreadsheet is gonna be done by you, frankly, and your sales director, one or the other. The agents may not get into that unless they really want to learn something new. They'll have to put in their data as far as expenses and budgets and what they want to spend. And they'll have to put in their data, and you'll find all this afternoon as far as what are their pillars of leads or their lead sources, their types, right? Am I going to go after FSBOs or expireds or those type of things? But the information for you guys to be pulling pending reports and find out what their average numbers should be, that's going to be all you, because they don't have access to it. But it's not as easy to get to as would. So then the conversation you can be having with these agents and your sales director is, how often do we want them to do their business planning? And what we encourage folks to do is, once you print this out, there's going to be a page that you're going to be able to print out so that they can see if they're on track, and stick that on a bulletin board somewhere so they have it in front of them, because it's the biggest thing that happens with business planning is you get the business plan done, they're good, they turn it off on their computer and they don't look at it again until you ask them to do another training session or another business planning session. And that could be in 2023. Hopefully not, because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to at least get this done quarterly for all the agents, so they can see where they're off track or on track. So the pending report information will be something that I would think you guys will be doing quarterly with your agents, right? Manipulation of the rest of the spreadsheet are going to be just things to help you guys in your everyday work as agents call on you and sales directors for other activities they'd like you to do. Oh, you're muted.